G'day everyone, welcome to Either Side of Nhill. I'm Ben.
And I'm Kristy, and today we're speaking with the wonderful Mark Oates. Mark is a very well-known singer and performer in Adelaide, having performed for many years in amateur theatre and plays, including the Adelaide Fringe, the Adelaide and Brisbane festivals, and also State Opera South Australia. Mark's credits also include shows with Singular Productions, Aerial Artists Australia, and, saving the best to last, the amazing Northern Light Theatre Company. We're so excited to have him on our show today. Mark, welcome, and thanks so much for joining us on Either Side of Nhill.
Good morning. How are you both?
Very well. How are you?
I'm
really
very
good.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Mark. It's an absolute pleasure. You've been performing for a long time. In fact, just before we started recording this morning, we worked out that you and I were in Jesus Christ Superstar in 2004, which was 18 years ago.
Oh, gosh. We were 12, weren't we?
We were so young. It was a primary school production, yeah. And Kristy actually came over to see it, so that was fantastic.
So much. Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Mark, when did you realise that singing and performing is something that you love to do?
Well, I actually started singing in my church choir when I was about 4.
Wow.
So, Dad was the choir master. So I was raised on 4-part, hymns, ancient and mouldy, Anglican harmony. And I loved it. Like I will say, like, I'm not an overly religious person, but I really, really love that Anglican canon of choral music. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and in school. So I always played piano. I played clarinet for a little while, but I always sang and did school musicals, and that's kind of where my love started. Yeah.
Wow, so very young age, fantastic.
Yes. 4 is young, isn't it? You recently became a freelance performer, Mark, which is every performer's dream. How hard was it to make that decision?
Yeah, it was a really tough decision. So so my journey was an interesting one. I went to the Elder Conservatorium when I left school, and I kind of just fumbled my way in there, and I was way too young to be at university, and it was a great time in my life, but I'd met my wife and we wanted to get married, and I wasn't overly confident as a young singer. So I studied there. I didn't actually finish my degree, but I studied there, and from there I joined State Opera, working as a chorister, while also doing some community theatre work. But when our kids came along, I kind of let it all go. I found a letter the other day that was written to me by the CEO and artistic director of the opera company, Bill Gillespie, way back then, when I'd written in and said, look, I'm not going to audition for next year's season. And I think I probably would have been about 24 or 25. And I found this letter that he wrote back that I don't even remember getting it. And he wrote back saying, we really value your work as a chorister. And of course, we appreciate you wanting to take a year off because you've got young children, but we'd love to have you back. Please come back and audition in the future. And I didn't even realize. Ben knows this story. I didn't sing for about 12 years when the kids came along.
Wow.
So when I started singing again was when I met Ben for the first time doing a Jesus Christ Superstar out of the blue for Northern Light Theatre Company. I was balancing my I worked as a senior executive in a government role for the Australian government. And so I spent a long time balancing that. I started doing community theatre work again, and then I found myself back working at the Opera Company. So I was balancing this very hectic day job that had me travelling interstate, working in executive support and facilitating workshops and doing planning days and everything with the theatre work that I was doing. And that went on for quite some time. My wife eventually... in about 2014-15 said to me, like, this is nuts. Sooner or later you're going to have to make a choice. And I balanced on and we just got an opportunity presented itself to me in around 2019. And so you'll all know where this is going, of course, with that horrible thing that happened in 2020. But
exactly.
This opportunity presented itself. I was getting a lot more work with the Opera Company under Stuart Maunder's artistic directorship. And I actually had, early 2019, I realised I actually had a pretty full book with the Opera Company and with Aerial Artists Australia and a couple of other things that I was doing, side projects, that was going to take me pretty much full time as a performer right through to December the following year, into December 2020. And at that point, I thought, well, what a great launching pad, what a great opportunity to kind of make this decision to throw myself at it, and for people to see that I am doing this full time. And because I had a lot of people that would say to me, "Oh, we were going to talk to you about this gig, but we know that you've got a day job. It was going to be too hard, so we went to this person instead." So yeah, I took the plunge. That was May 2019. So I walked away from a 29-year and 2-month Australian public service career.
Wow,
as a
that's
senior executive.
incredible. What
So
was
it
the
was,
sense of relief there, Mark? For you? Or was there sadness or relief, or just like, now I can do what I really love?
Well, it was funny because I will say, and I've said this to everybody I worked with over the time, I was an accidental public servant. It was my wife and I wanted to get married. I knew I needed to get a full-time job. I had 3 different part-time jobs, and I just sat the public service test. And I landed in an agency that was the largest recruiter. And for whatever reason, I just kind of, I fit. But the thing that I did for my entire career in the public sector, I'm not saying the agency I worked for, because I never do. But what I found in my entire career, I worked for a very large agency. So whenever I got a little bit bored, I just put my hand up. I was always, at that place, I was much braver than I was anywhere else. So I was always happy to put my hand up and say to someone like, "Oh, I'm kind of looking to do something a little bit different." And because of that, people got to know me, and I got to work in a whole bunch of different areas. And that then also meant that I met a lot of executives. And in doing that, and I think probably because of the work that I'd always done on stage, I was always comfortable working with large groups of people. So in doing that, I found myself starting to work as a facilitator of groups and starting to work in leadership roles. And so that bit was hard. So I will, and I was always perfectly frank about this, I never loved the work that I did. I loved the sense of contributing to, I genuinely felt this sense of contributing to the Australian society as a public servant. I very much appreciated that. What I did love though about the work that I did was the people that I worked with.
Of course.
So I worked with a lot of people that were lawyers and accountants. This might give you a clue of where I worked, who were like, just loved that. They loved the law and they loved that work. And so for me, what I loved was working with people to help them get the best out of what they had to do.
Yeah, right.
So that was really bittersweet for me. I had a lot of very, very close colleagues who I genuinely loved. So walking away from the people was a very, very hard thing. But the flip side of that was this giant sense of relief that I finally found myself in that that beautiful old cliche, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah, well, that's such
it's
so true. I truly believe that, yeah.
And I never believed it. I thought, oh, people say that. They're all, people say that because it's a romantic thing to say, like, rain on your wedding day, happy marriage. No, we just got rained on.
Exactly.
Getting pooed on by a bird is a sign of good luck. No, I just got pooed on by a bird.
Yeah, exactly.
In my mind, it was always that kind of cliche, but it's been the best thing. And the opportunity for me to balance giving back to the community that I worked with. So jumping back in every now and then and either helping out on or actually stepping in when I'm asked to play roles in community theatre, where I feel that there's a really wonderful opportunity for me to share my professional experience with people or experience of roles that I've played before and how they've developed. So that the balance of that, but also working in like large scale professional work with the Opera Company on, very, very big productions, right through to, lovely, gorgeous little tiny chamber works with small and emerging companies, or really odd things for me, like singing dodgy pop songs for amazing aerial artists and traveling all around Australia and to New Zealand doing that, something I never thought I'd do.
That sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
Just it's really interesting, Mark. Thank you for sharing that with us. I just wanted to rewind to something that you touched on a little bit earlier when you
Yep.
decided to flip into being professional performer, freelance performer. Back in 2019, before the world went to custard. Many performers struggled with work during the lockdowns, and especially in Melbourne. I was listening to an interview recently with Kate Severano, and she was telling us how hard it has been for people in Melbourne and Australia more broadly.
Yep.
But can you tell us how you were affected and also how you coped during that time?
Yeah. It was an enormous sense of loss for me. And it's funny because I think in Adelaide in particular, we've picked up a little quicker than, our fall off was a different trajectory to the full national scene. And so there were some small scale things that continued to work, but that sense of loss. So basically March came around, February, March 2020 came around, and I started having work cancelled, contracts cancelled, contracts postponed. So there was a giant sense of loss. One of the things that was a saving grace for me was the opera company, because we've had issues with the theatres that we use. So, of course, we all know that the Her Majesty's Theatre was closed and knocked down. That then put a giant amount of strain on the Adelaide Festival Centre. So most of my career working for the opera company, work has been scheduled 2 and 3 years in advance. But for the last 5 or 6 years, with the work being done on Her Majesty's and other, various things, we'd gone back to a little bit more of an annual model for work. So that meant, and to my great fortune, Stuart Maunder, who was the artistic director at the opera company, or is at the moment, he finishes up next October, when he was contacting all of us about the work that we had scheduled for 2020, what he said to us at the time is, I'm not cancelling this work, I'm postponing it and shifting it to the 2021 season. So I had 3 very large contracts with the opera company on great works, one of which has still not happened, but it was replaced by another. So while I had that genuine upset of like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm losing this work. Unlike a lot of my colleagues who worked interstate, who where I don't know what I'm going to do, the work is just gone, my thought at that point was, I don't know what I'm going to do until the work comes. Because we were, and Stuart was very clear with us, I will honour the contracts that I've had if you are available when the new seasons can run.
Wow.
So how did I cope? And the other thing that was an added stress to that is my wife and I were building a new house.
Yeah.
So
God.
So I'd quit my day job. December 2019, we'd signed a contract to build a new house. We were about to demolish the house in March when the whole COVID thing hit. So here I am. I just moved into a rental. We had a contract for demolition. We had a contract to start building. And I thought, oh my Lord, I didn't think that. I thought something far more. But we're in a public environment.
That's it.
Thank you.
What am I going to do? The interesting thing that became my coping mechanism, Steph and I, when we were looking at building a new house, Steph got very deeply into this idea of sustainable building. And when she started getting into this idea of sustainable building, 2 things happened. Our budget went through the roof, because that's what happens when you build sustainably. In the short term. In the long term, our power bills are extraordinarily almost nothing.
Yeah.
But the other thing that happened is we then decided we wanted to do things like do a full salvage demolition of our old 30s bungalow. So what I was able to do was throw myself at things like stripping out the interior of the house and organising for things to either be sold to other people who would use them or given away to friends that were doing projects of their own. So I stripped out all of my internal doors and gave them to a friend who was renovating a house in Mount Torrens. And we stripped out other things and sold them to people that were doing renovations, or, sold them very, very cheap, just so they'd be used again and not end up in the tip. And what I ended up doing for several months was hand cleaning a pile of 9,500 bricks that were
Oh,
then used in my
no
new house.
way.
I
Yeah.
feel like I followed you on that journey on Facebook.
Oh,
Actually.
Well, if I do this might give everyone a little bit of, I don't want to make anyone sick, but like that, for example, that wall there, for example,
Wow,
they're your old
every one of
bricks.
those bricks
that's
are bricks
beautiful.
from my old house that I hand cleaned on my block.
Wow, unbelievable.
And so how did I cope with lockdown and losing work? I rage cleaned bricks for several months in the rain. That's how I
You
coped.
picked up the tools.
I did.
Fantastic. Oh, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
yeah, those old red bricks, I tell you what, I just absolutely love them.
Oh, look, I lie on the floor in my lounge room every night and I look up and think, oh, that's my favourite brick. Oh, no, that's my favourite brick. So, yeah.
Mark, you've talked about performing with State Opera South Australia, which is fantastic, in shows including The Merry Widow, La Traviata, Sweeney Todd, The Magic Flute, Carmen, and many others.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about what it's like working with State Opera and that machine, as you sort of kind of described it earlier, and maybe tell us some of your highlights of some of the shows you've worked on or what you're working on now?
So at the moment, I'm working. I'll do a little plug.
Sure.
I'm just about to head off on a national tour of a fabulous little chamber opera called Love Burns.
Right.
It's based on the, I keep saying the Honeymoon Killers, but it's actually the Lonely Hearts Killers. It's a true story, a true crime story. This couple in the 40s in the States who were found guilty of killing 3 and were executed. It's suspected they killed, they think they killed about 20 people.
Wow. Oh my
So,
God.
and this is it was written by, it's a little 71, it's about 71 minutes long, straight through.
Okay.
There are 5 of us, so Jessica, Dean, and I play Angela and Jack, who are the Lonely Hearts Killers. I play a dance instructor, a bit of a gigolo, and what I do is I con women out of their money, particularly older women.
Right.
And I meet Angela, and I con her out of her money, and I disappear. She finds me, however. And she convinces me that we should actually pair up and we should con women as brother and sister.
Wow.
And she convinces me by pointing out to me that if I don't agree, she's going to send me to jail or call the police and send me to jail. So we tick along like that for a little while. And then, of course, what happens is we nearly get caught. And then she convinces me that, well, you know what, the best way to not get caught would be to kill these women after we've conned them out of their money rather than just leave them and go into hiding. So they can't find us. Murder and mayhem ensues.
Wow.
And we eventually get caught. And, well, she dobs me in because she gets incredibly jealous, thinks I've fallen in love with one of the Marks. I've decided and my line is actually, I was tired of all the killing. She asks me why did this happen?
Wow.
And we get electrocuted at the end. So,
Wow.
but it's
Spoiler.
Yeah, spoiler. Yeah, beautifully directed by Nick Cannon, an Adelaide-based director and performer. We have 3 other performers who play multiple characters across the show. 2 women, Rachel McCall and Roseanne Hosking, and Jeremy Tatchell, a regular baritone with the opera company. And it's a hoot. So we're kicking off. We're doing 1 show in Adelaide before we leave. We're performing on the 19th of November at the Hopgood Theatre.
Okay, fantastic.
Details available on the State Opera website.
Down south.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing that because when we do our regional SA tour, you remember those beautiful theatres in the regions that Don Dunstan set up when they built the festival centre.
Yeah.
So the Chafee and the, I'll get the names of these theatres wrong, the Helpman. So we go to Mount Gambier, we go to Renmark, we go to Port Lincoln, and the Hopgood. These theatres were all set up on exactly the same tech specs as the Playhouse.
Yep.
So the stage is the same size, the rig is the same. And when the opera company does regional South Australian tours, we always go to those theatres because we can build a show that we can just put in there and just pick up the tech specs and take them there. So we do the one down at Noarlunga, supported by Country Arts SA, to kick off. And then we head off to Darwin and Townsville and Toowoomba.
Fantastic.
And then we come back and we do a little bit of work here, including a big musicals gala. And then we head off to Western Australia and we do Margaret River and Perth. And then we come back and we do regional SA. So,
Not coming to Melbourne?
Sadly, at this stage, no.
Not yet. Yeah.
I would hope. We don't really know. Like, we've been supported by the Rise Australia grant funding, and
Okay.
so fingers crossed we might come to
Yeah.
Melbourne. But if you're in Melbourne, it's not all that far to drive to Mount Gambier.
It's not actually.
True.
No,
That's true. Yeah.
We
Have a
always want our
little check.
artists to come to us, don't we? We
Yes.
never want to drive for them.
I know.
And that's the Hopgood Theatre nearly got knocked down and it got
Yes.
saved. So that's absolutely fantastic.
And I think Country Arts SA were involved in saving it, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a
that's-
big rally, so that's fantastic.
Yeah. So I jumped in quickly. What was I currently working on? What was your question again?
I was
Ben?
just some of the highlights, and I guess just how a company like that works,
Yes.
because it's just next level compared to amateur theatre or some of the smaller.
So how does the company? So my experience with the company. So like I joined the company as a chorister, and I generally write in my bio, I'm a very proud, long-standing member of the State Opera of the chorus of State Opera South Australia. It's been an amazing, a remarkable company to work with. When I first joined the company, it was about 1989, 1990. So before many people were born. There are some people still working with the company now who've been with the company 40 years or longer when it started as New Opera in South Australia many years ago. So that's kind of the journey of the company. I think as New Opera, they used to run about 7 operas a year, and they set themselves up as a repertory company. So they had a permanent roster of principals, and they had a semi-permanent chorus. Of course, not in Australia. There's no company in Australia that supports that anymore. I mean, Opera Australia has a full-time chorus, but they no longer have a permanent roster of local principals. But so where State Opera is now, it's a great place to work. It's a really beautiful company. We still do predominantly under Stuart Maunder's leadership. We've done 2 or 3 main stage traditional grand operas a year. Stuart also has always worked very hard to make sure that we have large chorus operas, at least 1 a year, usually a couple. So we've just done Traviata. This year's been a little light on because we're still recovering from COVID, but generally speaking, there are at least 2, sometimes 3 large chorus operas a year. And then the company does the gamut. So we've been doing, under Stuart's artistic directorship, we've been doing what he calls this Lost Operas of Australia series.
And that's interesting. What is it?
And
operas from the past, like out of the archives.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of them, small chamber operas or small works that have been done by our opera company. We've had an involvement in them through festivals in the past, or we've mounted premiere seasons of them, etc. Or they've been operas that have been written specifically for Opera Australia. And I've been involved, I think we've done 9 or 10 of them now, and I've been involved on stage in 3 of them and in an assistant director capacity for 2 of the others, and it's just been amazing. And we've done them in really interesting environments. So Love Burns, we did a season of Love Burns last year, which was written by Graham Kerner, who's just retired as the head of music at the Elder Conservatorium. So he was in these weird Adelaide connections.
Yeah.
He was my orchestration lecturer when I was at university.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah. So we performed that one last year down at Plant 4 in Bowden.
Yep.
So we set it in a warehouse, and our set and our production is it's evocative of like a storeroom in the upstairs in the warehouse, and our characters are all we all kind of conceived and appear out of the dusty memories in the storeroom, and then we tell this story, and then we all disappear back into the dusty memories. It's really beautiful. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's so much fun
wonderful.
to do.
So Plant 4 would have been perfect for that, because it is literally an old factory, basically.
Yeah, big sawtooth roof, the works, you know. And again, that comes with some really interesting challenges. So Plant 4 runs a market. So we were able to get in there. We had to build a set, and one of the reasons this has been picked up for touring is we had to build a set that we could knock down after every performance and then rebuild again for the next performance, because the market had to come in.
Oh, wow.
So we had this really unusual season of we did a Thursday night and then had Friday off because it was market night, and then did Saturday night, but we had to bump the set out because Sunday morning there's a market, and then bump it back in again and do Sunday night.
Oh, wow, the same day.
Yeah, so we created
this
so we created a production, and our set is literally it's on a diagonal, and it's literally a series of doorways and window frames that go to an asymmetrical V at the back, and then we play in the V space, and we do all of our own scene changes, and it's real simple stuff like we have chairs and we have drop cloths and suitcases, and it's just it's what I love about small scale touring work that I've done with Co-Opera, and I've done with various people, and I've done with the opera company here. So you get that kind of balance, which is amazing. And then you do things like I've just finished a production of Traviata, where I was really fortunate to play Gastonnet, a beautiful character, genuine grand opera, giant ball gowns for the women, and a set that had moving pieces that created 7 different rooms and flies and light coming in through windows, and it was just spectacular at the beautiful new Her Majesty's Theatre.
Yeah,
so
stunning.
That's the joy of working for the opera company, is the different scale and scope of the work that you get to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're willing to experiment as well, and they're not just going with the safe options, which is what you want. Yeah. So you're a tenor. For those people that don't really know music, you're a tenor. So you got to hit some pretty high notes.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's a funny thing. I've realised of late I am actually tenor. I would always call myself a fake tenor. So my journey to tenor. In fact, my journey to tenor was through music theatre. So when I started singing classically, I was my very first singing teacher when I was about 18 at the conservatorium said to me, "You're a tenor," but my top note was about a top G, which is high-ish, but not outrageously high. Baritone, low tenory. And then my next teacher, that guy moved on. My next teacher said to me, "No, you're a bass baritone." And so then I spent a year trying to be a bass, and that was all a bit hectic. And so I found myself as a young singer being caught between kind of high baritone, low. Most of the classical repertoire I worked with was there. When I started working for the opera company, I worked as a baritone. So I was saying first bass or second tenor. So I kind of sat in the middle there. When I came back and started singing again and discovered, and one of my early singing teachers, I remember her to this day, and I love her, Gwila Tiva, her name is. And when I was very, very disillusioned as a 21, 22-year-old, she said to me, she said, it's really hard working with young singers like you, because I know you're not going to find your real voice until you're in your mid-30s.
Wow.
And this is different because people progress at different times. You go off and you find different things to do. Now, I wasn't overly confident as a performer at that stage and didn't really know myself very well. And I've reconnected with Gwila since I've started singing again, and we've had a couple of beautiful, lovely conversations. And I remember saying to her, like, at the time, I didn't hear what I know now you were saying to me, which was, let's do all these other things and develop into where you're going to end up. What I heard was, you're not going to be good at this until you're in your mid-30s. So I went, oh, well, I'm going to stop doing it.
Come back then.
Now, of course. Yeah. So, of course, when I came back and I got this phone call out of the blue for Northern Light for Jesus Christ Superstar and started singing again, I was in my mid-30s. And I discovered this parts of my voice. Like, I mean, I'd sung in showers and done weddings and, done odd concerts, but I'd not been performing.
Yeah.
And I discovered parts of my voice that I didn't realize, or that I hadn't had when I was younger. And so then when I started actually working on it again and taking lessons and going back, that's when I reconnected with Gwila. And my first conversation with Gwila started with me saying to her, I am so sorry.
Oh, really? She must have loved that.
It was a really lovely connection.
Come the full circle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, across that period, she was... So for quite some time there, she was still teaching at the conservatorium. So I started having the odd lesson with her again and with other people and just connecting with her. I started working with the opera company again, and she is, obviously had been very involved, comes to all of our productions. But my son, Josh, who's an oboe player, was studying at the conservatorium. So we had that connection, which was really lovely as well. So I'd see her at the orchestral concerts too.
Wow.
So it was really interesting to find that and discover. So as a tenor, what's happened there is I've grown. So there are all sorts of different tenors, and I think what people think of is your classic, Pavarotti,
yes,
giant, great big operatic tenor. And I can sing up to top B, up to top C. But for me as a tenor, I do more kind of character or comprimario tenor roles. So if you imagine the way your voice works, like I can sit up around your Fs and your Gs for quite some time comfortably, but I have to come back down. So a lot of those big operatic roles. So for example, Alfredo, who is the main tenor in Traviata, he sits quite high in his tessitura and across the show probably sings about, 15 or 16 top Bs or more, like big grand ones in really high big pieces. I have the kind of voice, I can go up there, but I have to come back down again.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I can, so in a Valjean, for example, I can crack 2, 4, 6, 0, 1. I can smack that B flat over and over and over and over in that song fine, because the rest of the roll sits a little bit lower.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, and it's the same for me operatically. So for me, finding opera repertoire is always really interesting, because you look and go, oh, I want to sing that big aria. And you go, actually, no, I need to find that minor character, because that comprimario aria is way better storytelling and sits much better in my voice. So,
and sometimes it just takes all these years of experience just to figure that out and then come to the landing point. It's like, actually, no, this is where I should be.
Absolutely.
Is that where you feel like where you are now? That's
I think I'm a little better.
You should be now. Yeah,
I am better at that. One of the conversations we have at the company all the time is, can you come down and sing, and what arias have you got in your back pocket? And my awkward bit all the time is not many, because because what I tend to do is learn the work that I'm given. So I'll think about and of course we have to audition like everybody else. I put myself on the line every year and go back in and have a sing. But you always try and think about, well, what work do I think is on the horizon? And what would I prepare to remind them that I have the kind of voice and acting skills in particular that would be suitable for that? The other thing that for me is really, really important in the company, and where my advantage has been with the company. So Ben, you were listing off a few of the things I've done. There are a few of us at the company that, like, I describe myself as a crossover artist. So my love and my passion is singing, and to be perfectly frank, if the music is beautiful, I don't care what I sing. Like I just love to perform. I love to tell stories through song, and if that means that I'm doing a piece of music theatre, or if that means I'm working on a cabaret set, or if that means I get to sing a pop song that has an arc that is linked to something that someone is doing on an apparatus, I'm happy as Larry.
Yeah.
And I've had some. It's funny you asked me that, Kristy, because I had a really interesting discussion a couple of years ago with a beautiful man that I was having singing lessons with, who helped me rediscover some and find some new parts of my operatic voice that I'd not been working with. So he said to me, like, I'd love to offer you some lessons. And I thought, this is great. Like, he's a long-standing Australian opera performer. And he said, because I hear this in your voice and I think that there's something there. And so I spent some time with him, and it was just beautiful. And we worked on some repertoire and some technique, and I found some parts of my voice that I really, really loved. But we got to a point where he said to me, I really think every time I come for a lesson, he'd say, oh, what have you been up to? And I'd say, oh, well, I've had Broadway sessions and I did that, and I was off doing this concert for that, and we were working on this opera. And one day he said to me, okay, I think you need to concentrate. You need to let all of that other work go. And I think you need to just concentrate on doing this. Because every time you change and sing stylistically in a different way, it's just taking you away from your focus for the opera work. And we had a big conversation about it, and I was a little taken aback at first, and I felt like, because I respect him hugely, and I felt like, oh God, I'm going to let him down, and I didn't want to let him down. But this is the advantage of being a bit older. I thought, hang about. Like, I'm paying for lessons with him because I want to develop something for me. This is not about me letting him down. This is about me. This is about me focusing on myself. So we had a big conversation about it, and kind of where we came to is, I said to her, I was 52 at the time, so I'm 54 now. I'll out myself. I felt worse when my son turned 30 than I did when I turned 54. That was horrible. But I remember saying to him, to Douglas, look, if I were in my 30s and we were having this conversation and I could see this opportunity, I would absolutely throw myself at that. But I'm 52 and my value to the company is my versatility as a crossover artist. But also, I love doing these other things too much to let them go. So while I absolutely admire and what you're doing with me and you as a performer, and I absolutely respect what you're saying, my 90% of this in that opera space is enough for me in my current place in my career.
Yeah.
Because it means that I've got 100% of all these other things. I could concentrate 100% on the opera, but it would have to be at the exclusion of that. And I don't want to not do that work.
That's right. Yeah.
I love it too much.
Yeah. You're a bit like a Swiss Army knife, Mark.
Yeah, a little. But that's the
Do everything.
yeah, and that's the joy of it for me. So, Ben, we do this Civic Park carols every year. So I sing up a Titri Gully every year and I love it to bits. But I started that, the music director pulled me in as a tenor, and we have a quartet that does all of the backing vocals, and we sing some solo, we support the lead artists, and I got pulled into that as a tenor. But equally, I've been pulled into work in other choirs as a bass because I can sing I can sing bass repertoire, particularly in choral work, through to tenor repertoire in choral work, and I can sit anywhere in it. So if there's, and I call myself, my initial Instagram tag, which I changed, was Mark Oates Part Tart. So pretty much what I'll say to someone is, if you've got something to sing and I have the notes in my voice, I would love to come and sing it for you.
Yeah.
So because for me, it's about telling a story through song and being able to sing the song. It doesn't have to be grand opera.
You just touched on the Christmas carols, Mark, and you're well known in Adelaide for your yearly appearance at the Civic Park carols. So have you nutted out what you're performing this year? And what is your favourite carol to sing?
Oh, my favourite carol to sing. I must admit, I sing carols because they're there. This is because I love the people. And when we start singing the carols, I love them to bits.
Yeah.
I'm probably more a Christmas song kind of guy than a carol kind of guy. Yeah. So my favourite Christmas song to sing that I've had the chance to do at Civic Park a few times is Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It's just so much fun. Yeah. And we do this beautiful jazzy arrangement of it. I think my favourite carol to sing, and we've done a couple of beautiful renditions of Silent Night. And before I started singing at Civic Park carols, I used to do the Adelaide Festival Centre Christmas proms every year. And that just, through circumstances, etc., they don't do a Christmas proms anymore. They've moved in a different direction. And I think I've probably sung over the years at least 20 or 25 different arrangements of Silent Night, from traditional arrangements right through to really crunchy jazz harmony arrangements.
Wow. Cool. Sounds fun.
I love that one. That's really good. Civic Park carols this year, I'm not sure yet. We don't have our repertoire list, but I think it's a couple of weeks. So we'll get it in the next week or so. Yeah.
And of course, the musical director for that one is Peter Johns,
the
who's
wonderful
also
Peter Johns,
very well known in Adelaide, and
a
fantastic musical director and fantastic guy. And actually, I can walk to the Civic Park carols. They're very close to my house. So if I can't go, I can hear you.
Yes,
we hear you do your sound check every year. We're like, we can hear Mark coming across the hills. It's absolutely beautiful. So
it's one of those funny things I never really think about. Like I've gone a number of times. I was talking about jumping in and pitching in and helping out with community theatre when I can, because I love it to bits. And I've worked with some beautiful companies, like you said, Northern Light Theatre Company. I did a Les Mis for them at the beginning of this year, and it was like going home. It was just, I really enjoyed it. It was fraught. We had COVID close downs. I won a role in a premiere piece for the Adelaide Festival that I wasn't expecting to come about. And so before we'd even started rehearsals, I offered to withdraw from the production, but they wanted me to stay. And so we had to balance COVID, me being out of production for 5 weeks to work on the festival. But it was like going home. But one of the things I found is if people need and I get asked, I've been to a lot of theatre companies where I've just gone in and sung in the booth. So quite often they'll have, like, well, we want a bit of oomph in our ensemble, and so we're pulling some people into singing in the booth. And I love it, and I never think about it. I go sing in the booth, and then I'll have people messaging me the next day saying, were you singing backstage in this particular production? And I'm like, I always forget that. I mean, my voice is I've performed a lot, and my voice is a little recognisable, I think. So, and I never quite think about that. I go, yeah, sure, I'll sing in the booth. And then people are like,
hang on a minute.
why's Mark Oates singing in this production?
I want to see his face, Dad. Actually, that was, and I'm not plugging my own musical career here because it's very, very minor, but we did Mamma Mia last year, which with
so
Northern
good.
Light.
And Ben was extraordinary, let me tell you. He was wonderful.
Thank you. That was lots of fun. But there is if you're not on stage, you are in the booth for that show. So you're literally changing at the booth because there's no time. But the experience for those watching it on stage, it just gives it so much more. And it is so much fun singing in the booth. It's amazing because you're not being seen, and you just gathered in this little huddled thing around one microphone, watching the musical director on a screen, which was Peter Johns, and trying to hit the notes. It's so much fun.
And what people don't realise is that, I think people think, they do that in community theatre, so it'll look like there are more people singing on stage. And it happens a lot in big chorus scenes, where, everyone's puffed out on stage, so you want more voices. But it happens in professional theatre as well.
Okay.
This is professional music theatre. There are certain shows and certain numbers in certain shows that are what they call tracked. So they'll actually have, or they'll have booth singers oomping them out as well, and that's all part of the experience.
I'm learning so much today. This is such a unbelievable discussion. All these things I didn't have any knowledge of, so it's absolutely great behind the scenes.
Hey,
actually,
Mark, go on. No,
I was just going to say, interestingly enough, that recording thing, I got the call up. Eldercon Music Theatre School were doing a production of Les Mis in June this year, and I got a phone call from Peter Johns, who was production managing, and their wonderful young singer Josh Ridge, one of the third years, was playing Valjean, and he'd fallen ill. So I got a phone call on a Friday night saying, "What are you doing tomorrow? Can you come and sing Valjean for the university?"
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a terrifying few hours. And what ended up happening, because there were some issues with insurance and they had moving set, etc., is Josh was vocally unwell, so he acted the role on stage, and I stood, if you remember, Ben, the Scott Theatre has exit doors on either side of the stage.
Okay, yeah.
I stood in the exit door, so I could stand with my side to the audience, and I could see the conductor, and I could see Josh on stage, and I sang the role while he acted it.
Oh my God!
No way!
Which was
I didn't realise that even happens.
Experience. Yeah, we've done that. I've done that with the Opera Company a few times as well. We've had covers who had to sing while somebody else is acting.
What an eye opener! I did not know that would even occur. It's like it's incredible.
It was an extraordinary experience. I enjoyed it a lot, and I had friends because we said nothing to anyone. It was just literally it was announced as the curtain came up that I'd be singing the role, and I had a bunch of friends in the audience, and everyone I've spoken to, and I was so relieved because it worked exactly as you wanted. Everyone said for the first 5 or 10 minutes, like through the prologue, it was a bit kind of weird because we were looking at Josh, but we were hearing your voice. But within about 5 or 10 minutes, they were all just completely absorbed in the story again. So it just didn't matter that I was there singing. And that, as an artist, is the biggest compliment you can get, that you've just settled into a production and you're not drawing any focus. Everyone's just going on the story.
And it's not awkward. Yeah,
well, that's actually just blown me away. I did not know. So Josh is on stage miming, and you're singing for the layman's. For me that don't know.
It's exactly that. And interesting. And because I've played the role like 60 odd times, like I do it a certain way. So the other thing I had to do was really clock into, well, how did he do it?
Right.
Because, like his body emphasis is different and his approach to phrases a little bit different. So I'd gone in on the Friday night and sat in the balcony with my score and just stared at him for the whole show and written myself notes about tempi, about where he took notes longer than me, or he finished phrases differently to me, because, you bring your own self to a role. So I'd written myself a whole bunch of detailed notes about that. And then I'd spent all day Saturday studying that and thinking about that and practicing phrases the way I'd seen him have a crack at them on the Friday night, and then I tried really hard to match as much I could what he was doing on the stage.
Fantastic.
So
Wow.
That is just totally blown my tiny little brain, because I'm thinking you could have really messed with him. You could have really messed with him.
It was just the best. It was the most
so professional, of course, but that's incredible.
And you'd probably just thinking, I want him to shine. So you're really just sort of supporting him to be good. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. We had a question here, and you've talked about regional performances, and the question was about, we hear a lot of people that perform nationally, whether they're pop stars or theatre, whatever it might be, and they talk about Adelaide audiences being a bit special, a bit unique. There's something about them. And I've been to shows with, George, Katie Noonan. They reformed and performed about 5 years ago, and it was at the Gov, and she was
the Gov.
Oh my, yeah. Did you go to that?
Yeah, I sure did.
And she was so blown away because we were all just singing. She goes, "This is amazing!"
Yeah.
It just blew her mind. Is there something that you think is unique about Adelaide audiences or regional South Australian audiences, maybe?
Main city audiences, like the shows that I've done interstate have been different kind of shows. So they're kind of squealy yay shows, like La Ariel and other concert kind of work. I think what I find about Adelaide audiences for the opera, and when I sit in the house for music theatre audiences, etc., is that Adelaide audiences just want it to be amazing. So I think, and sometimes that can come with it's like, well, maybe that thing wasn't as amazing as everybody squealed and was excited for it to be.
Yeah.
Which can be a little frustrating as a performer when you think, I think there could be more there, but that's when you're on stage, what you get is a lot of love from your Adelaide audiences. I think people genuinely want the best for everybody that's on stage and are just really happy to be there. In the regions in particular, what we've noticed is audiences are hard to get in the regions, particularly if you're like I do. I tour with a lot of chamber opera, so that's hard to get. But the people that come because they love that someone is bringing stories to their town. And that comes with a whole different sense of engagement. What I really, really love about working in the regions is spending time with the audiences afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
So
cool.
We will always go into the auditorium and make sure that we talk to people who've come, and it's just the most engaging and fabulous experience.
Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. Fantastic.
Such a wonderful discussion, Mark. And as we're getting to the end of our discussion here, we have now got our famous Fast Five, you don't know me questions, which we have to credit ABC, Melbourne, Virginia Trioli for these questions. We're giving credit to her because this is her idea, not ours. But it's so good. We just love it. Each week on her show, she asks a range of questions to her guests, but we've adapted it slightly. Plus, we've got a bonus question at the end. So are you ready, Mark?
I think so.
So you'd never know, but I
used to umpire State League netball.
Oh, there you go.
I did not know that.
You really are the Swiss Army knife.
Okay. The fork in the road I almost took was?
As a very young man, not deciding to date my wife.
Ooh,
yeah,
so
that would have been a big mistake because she's lovely.
She is lovely, and I was on a very different, quite destructive track. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, something you've said yes to, you've regretted.
Some very spiky contemporary singing.
Okay. Spiky as in controversial or spiky voice?
Nah, spiky as in what the shit is that interval? Pardon me. What the heck is that interval now, and how do I count that bit?
Okay. Just overly complicated stuff, yeah. I'm so proud that
I'm so proud that I have spent the time that I have with my family, and that my wife and I have created two beautiful boys with gorgeous, lovely partners.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah, and actually, I have to say, I ran into one of your boys at a pub the other night.
Oh.
And I haven't really seen them. I don't really see them very often. And I'm like, are you the orchestra one or the other one? He goes, I'm the other one, but the orchestra one is here as well. Okay, got you.
See, they've made it easy now because the non-orchestra one has a beard.
Oh, very good.
There's your tip.
Yeah.
He's a physio. He's a good one to know as well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay, next one. My secret pleasure or my guilty pleasure is?
Trashy 80s musicals.
So 9 to 5 has just opened last night.
I saw it last night. I saw the first preview last night, and it was
fabulous.
Great.
Was it good?
It was really good. Oh, fantastic! We're going to go and see it. Definitely.
Yeah, I'll give it a bit there. So they're working on tuning the sound in. That was my moment last night. I thought, the sound's not great, and then I thought, well, of course it's not. It's the first preview.
Yeah.
So, but the cast is amazing. Casey
Donovan. Oh, she's
spectacular.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Total eye opener. Beautiful. Like, acting is beautiful, which is great, but her vocal facility is extraordinary.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, she's really grown. I was thinking about it last night because we were having our cruise around the city, and I saw that it was on, and you think, when you think about her, the first time we all saw her was Australian Idol with the trackies and the hair, and now she's just this amazing
she's a powerhouse.
Powerhouse, that's the word, yeah. And the role that she plays is a very quirky role, and she has one of the show-stopping songs in the show, Get Out and Stay Out, and it is to die for.
God, I love seeing her trajectory just go through the roof. She's just an amazing performer.
Her entire characterization is great. Oh, my other secret guilty pleasure is heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
That's like the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Well, there is a bit of glam. Heavy metal does have a bit of a glam.
Well, yeah, but glam rock is a little different to heavy metal, but I do like that as well, yeah. So.
Okay. Now, this one is totally related to theatre and singing. What's your favourite food on a stick?
Those spirally potato things.
Yeah.
So good.
They are good, aren't they? I mean, there's so much surface area to be fried and covered in salt.
Salt.
How could you possibly go wrong? Yeah.
One of them. So you start your day at the Royal Show with one of them. No need for a toilet visit for the rest of the day.
That's your strategy.
All the moisture sucked out of your body. Perfect.
Yeah, that's it. Now you've told us what you're working on at the moment, which is Love Burns. So that was what was that November date for the Hopgood Theatre?
November the 19th. It's a Wednesday, and if I've got that a bit wrong, it's the Wednesday of that week.
Well, look, we will make sure we put a plug on our social media page.
October the 19th.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
soon.
Okay, so it's a couple of weeks away, not even.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll make sure we put all the stuff out there so that people can find it. Terrific. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Mark. It's been so great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Sorry I talk so much.
It's great. We love it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
That was such a good chat. I absolutely loved it, Ben. What a great guy, Mark.
He's fantastic. He really is such a nice guy. Thanks, Mark, so much for joining us.
And I really was fangirling. I was missing the questions, and I was like, oh shit, where are we up to? Because I was so interested in what he was saying, and there was so many things that I did not know. Particularly the bit about how he was side of the stage singing, and the guys on the stage like miming. I couldn't believe that. I was like, oh my God, there's hope for me yet, Ben.
Yeah,
I actually could get into this world of opera because I can't sing for shit.
Australia's most premier mime star, Kristy Horn.
Or maybe we could do like a road show. You could sing and I could mime.
That might throw people a little bit. I have to work on my falsetto.
That was ace. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and we'll put up all the information on Love Burns, the Lonely Heart Killers con artist show. It sounds really interesting, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? An interesting theme for a show, but a bit dark, but a bit of comedy by the sounds of it. So no, Mark's a great guy. Thank you so much, Mark. And what's happening, Kristy? You got anything to plug in Melbourne town, or we're just going to enjoy the sunny day?
No, Sunday Arvo. Not much, Ben. I'm just going to have a great rest of the weekend, and really looking forward to getting this podcast out. But not much. Got nothing this side, really. What about you?
Yeah. Well, look, we've got our son off being. Oh, go, please.
I do have one thing.
Oh, what's
breaking
that?
news. But the zip line's coming back to Melbourne across the Yarra.
Oh, right. Okay.
Do you remember that? We had it last year.
Yeah.
So you jump on the zip line. It's called Firefly or something. But yeah, that's breaking news in Melbourne town.
The zip line. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Oh, you get on it.
I will if you will.
Just check those carabiners before you push yourself off,
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. What are you up to?
It's all good. No, we don't have a lot going on. Our son stayed with his grandparents last night, and tonight. So we might head out for a walk, or we'll probably do some housework and that sort of stuff. But no, nothing too much. Just it's a beautiful sunny day here today, so we're going to enjoy the sunshine.
Perfect. That is so good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another awesome episode of Either Side of Nhill. This is, I have to say, one of my faves. I absolutely have loved it, and we hope everybody else really enjoys it too. So thanks for listening to Either Side of Nhill, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later.